Now, I know we talk a lot about the bad things Donald Trump is doing in this country and around the world, the terrible effects that he is having on people around the world. We talk about it all the time on this channel. But today we're going to talk about something that I think Donald Trump is doing right. Not something you're going to see from me very often in the next few years, but as I always try to be, I try to, show you the good with the bad, even if my side isn't the one doing the good. So, welcome to Unapologetic Progressive. Let's talk about it. Now, if you remember, Syria went through a decade plus long civil war where their leader, Assad, had been killing innocent people, using chemical weapons on people, and just it was really a bad situation. During that time, really heavy sanctions were placed on Syria simply because they're trying to, the world was trying to find a way to bring Assad to his knees to where he would either crumble and leave of his own accord or where, the rebels would take over. Now, we can discuss whether or not any of that was right or wrong. We can discuss it down the road, but I do believe the sanctions were necessary if the goal was to bring Assad to his knees. Um, and that's exactly how it kind of played out in the end, right? But in December, the Assad regime fell in Syria, and they were taken over by a new leader named al-Shahara. And we talked about him back in December. We'll talk about him a little bit more in this video later and give you a little refresher on some of the concerns that we had back in December. Now, over the course of the last 6 months or so, he has shown signs that he is just trying to rebuild Syria. Hasn't seemed to have any, you know, ties to any kind of groups trying to hurt Israel or terrorists trying to hurt people in Europe or any of that stuff. And so I think it's time these sanctions start coming off. And if Syria, for whatever reason, doesn't hold up their end of the bargain by remaining a good player in the world, then yeah, put the sanctions right back on. But as of right now, they seem to be wanting to play ball by the world's rules and not trying to, spread terrorism and be supporters of terrorism. Remember, the Assad regime was a bit, they were one of the countries that were helping fund terrorism around the globe, especially in Europe. And so this other guy not looking like he is aiming to do that seems like a win, right? But the fact is, if they don't pull these sanctions off, the Syrian people will never be able to recover. Because right now, they are ineligible to get the help they need. They can't get help with health care to help the people there in the country who can't afford to find a doctor. But not only that, the lack of doctors being available because of all the people that have been displaced, all the refugees that have had to flee. And now you have a bunch of Syrians coming back, and the economy is gonna need help. You're gonna need health care. You're gonna need economic stability options put out there for them. And so I think that Trump is doing the right thing by removing U.S. sanctions on Syria. Now we'll see if he does this. We'll see if he actually follows through with what he's saying he's going to do. But right now, it looks like the right thing to do. Now, a little side note about al-Shahara, the new leader of Syria. Now, prior to 2016, he was a jihadist. He had kind of attached his wagon to the jihadist movement of Al Qaeda. The ones that were responsible for 9/11. But in 2016, he decided he was done with that kind of garbage. That it wasn't reasonable because the tactics they were using weren't going to get anything solved. That's according to interviews that I've seen him in since the fall of the Assad regime. Talk about how in 2016 he cut all ties with the jihadist movement in order to help Syria because being a jihadist was not going to help the Syrian people, was not going to help rebuild Syria and bring it to some kind of greatness, right? So he left that world behind. Now, do I ever fully trust anybody? No. Could he be lying to the world and in the end be trying to just get funds for help to help himself and maybe push some kind of jihadist movement later? It's possible. But it doesn't seem to be that way. all our naval intelligence and all our military intelligence is showing that right now everything is on the up and up in Syria. And if we can do something to keep Syria from becoming a hotbed for terrorism and maybe not be under the influence of Russia as much, then I think the world would be in a better place. So I think we need to lift these sanctions, because if we don't lift the sanctions, I do believe terrorism will creep into Syria, and I believe terrorist organizations will take root. As of right now, it appears that al-Shahara is stamping out that kind of thing, like not letting terrorists reside in Syria, and I think that's a good thing. If that maintains the way it's going, then I think all sanctions from all countries should be lifted on Syria and allow Syria to flourish and get the help it needs. But I think there needs to be something tied to that. I don't believe we just drop the sanctions and say, okay, we're done with it, right? And we need to make sure it's clear that if they don't abide by by the world rules and what the world is asking for, which is to be a country that works with others, that is not belligerent, does not support terrorism, which the Assad regime was known to do, then if they're not willing to do that, if they're not willing to play ball by the rest of the world's expectations, then those restrictions and those sanctions can be put back on the country. It's a little bit of a strong arm tactic, I think, in a way, if we did it that way. But I think at the same time, the world needs assurances, considering his background and the background of what the former leader in Syria, had been doing. I don't think that's too much to ask, but I do believe Donald Trump doing this is the right thing. For once in this terrible last few months, he is doing something that I think is right. So, that said, that's what we have for you on this particular episode. Something Trump has done right, and I think that it's something we need to be happy about. We still need to be guarded with what happens with Syria in the next few months, over the next year or two even. We'll see what happens. But don't let this distract you from the things Donald Trump has been doing and is continuing to do in this country. Keep your eye on the ball there. Don't let this distract you, and don't let some of the other things Donald Trump is trying to do for distraction purposes. But anyhow, I'll see you down the road.